Welcome to the Pop Tower Podcast with your host, the man behind the myth, Peter Dawson, and the Soulful Lordy, James Bullock.
Yes, it is indeed the Pop Tower Podcast, and guess what? It's Shark Week.
And we do not have Mike Tyson here to help us today.
Why would we ever?
Because he's Mike Tyson. He just shows up at random places all the time.
This is true. So this is episode 83 of the Pop Tower, and today we're talking about Maneater, the video game, not the song.
Yeah. That'd be
Jaws,
so weird
yes.
if we did that.
I know, right? Yeah, let's review a song. Because I have opinions about the original Power Rangers theme song. That's where I'd go with it.
Which also had a Freak of the Week that features a shark.
Yep, of course it did. Anyway, so besides Maneater, we're talking about Jaws,
Yes.
the original 1975 film, for a couple of very specific reasons, which we'll get into. And we're going to talk about season 1 of Stargirl.
Yes.
So there's no sharks in that show, but
I know. Hey, but we do have a lizard. We do have a reptile, so there you go.
yeah, that guy's a damn dirty mutant.
Yeah.
I don't know what he added to himself. Anyway, so we're going to start with Maneater, which is like the perfect stupid video game we need right now.
Yeah. It's one of those games.
I think that's the only way I can sum it up.
Yeah, it's one of those games that's not like functionally great. It doesn't do anything too wild or extraordinary, but it's just something that you can kick back and relax with and not hate yourself for playing it.
Oh, it's like the perfect casual open world game.
Yes.
Like if Ghost of Tsushima is a fantastic narrative-driven open world. So yeah, the idea is you're a shark,
Yes.
and you're just kind of roaming around. Like it's an open world. Like there's grottos to find, there's apex predators to hunt, there's all that stuff, and you got to find mutagenics to become a bigger shark. And it's all narrated by Chris Parnell, which is pretty great.
I was so surprised when I heard the narration. And I was like, wait, that voice sounds so familiar. And it was almost unbelievable to me that they got him for this.
It's shocking. That was probably where a good chunk of the budget went.
Yeah, more than likely.
It is funny, though, because there are some voice actors out there that sound a lot like Chris Parnell.
Right.
Like, I forget his name, but he does, like, the narration for How Heavy Are the Dumbbells That You Lift. He sounds a lot like Chris Parnell in that show. That guy. I refuse to look up his name now because he's going to be a that guy, which is actually probably harsh on voice actors now I think about it. But that's still a lot of work to do in the middle of recording a podcast, so I acknowledge my mistake in making that a joke.
Right.
Anyway, Maneater. Yeah, so, like, that's basically the premise. You're a shark. You go around doing sharky things. And you gain nutrients by eating things, like mutagenics, protein, fat. I think there was minerals in there, too.
Yeah, minerals in there. And, of course, there's other fish.
Yep. You can also... Can't you also weaponize swordfish or something like that?
Yes, you can.
Yeah. I haven't played this as much as you
You're
probably
right. No,
have.
yes, you can.
Yeah.
You feel like...
I cannot wait for this to be on the Switch.
Oh, no, that's a perfect Switch game. Like, that...
Oh, 100%.
It's one of those games, like, I don't understand why it's not on the Switch yet. Like, that is a great... That'll be a great handheld experience.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, and, like, that's basically it. It's... You're shark. There is a plot, but it's such a thin one.
Yeah, and that was the thing that, like, really hurts to me, like, the game, if you're just, like, trying to play it, which it's hard for me to believe you're just playing it for the story, but if, like, that's the reason why you wanted to play it, like, that's one of the worst parts about it is because the story is so paper thin that they have to pad it with a lot of extra stuff. Like, you have to go and kill this apex predator, or you have to eat X amount of humans in one spot, so you can progress the narrative without really progressing the narrative. And like the big thing about the story is the fact that this is really a reality show where we have shark hunters hunting down this specific shark. And of course the shark tries, as you're playing as a shark, you're trying to not only live but retaliate for something that happens really early in the story. I do not want to spoil that because that was actually a shock to me when it was revealed why you become this shark. And it's hilarious because as you progress through the story, you have different bounty hunters that show up that are just so stereotypical of what you would expect for a reality show about shark hunting. It's just absolutely fantastic. And of course you have to kill them too. So like as you progress through each level, there's a specific bounty that you have to take down. And really, I mean, it's not that much difficult than any other humans that show up when you kill a whole bunch of humans, like the bounties that show up in the potential shark hunters. But it's just funny to see them pop up out of nowhere, and they're on the jet ski with a rifle that a laser actually points in the opposite direction of where it should be pointing. Because of course this is pretty much a budget title, it's an indie title, so don't expect like the most high quality. And it's just one of those good old fashioned. This is the type of game that would come out during the PS2 era, really. Like right when open world games were starting to get hot and people were still experimental. Like this is the type of game that would come out then. But thankfully, it doesn't hit. Huh?
I was going to say, it's ridiculous, but it's also still more grounded than some of the other like shark sim games we've seen lately.
Yeah, it really walks that fine line. Like it respects the idea of simply being a shark that is able to mutilate both man and fish, but it still has a believability to it. Like you're not going to, when you first start off, be able to take down a crocodile. Like you have to work to grind and get bigger and grow, and to a certain extent just learn the overall mechanics to be able to overcome certain things, certain elements, certain enemies. And that really is very realistic because you think about it, like survival of the fittest in this regard, where you have to learn how to adapt to certain situations, what to avoid, what you can overcome. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, there's the ability, if you see a boat, just to jump on it Jaws-like and just start grabbing people at will.
Yep. It's like they let you do some absurd stuff, but there's still some decent rules to it to help keep it a little more, I'm going to say, relaxed.
Yeah. I was surprised when, just how stressful, and of course that would be very believable, if you actually get onto land, how stressful that moment is. Because naturally, of course, you can't breathe. And it doesn't even slowly wither away your health. It like does it very quickly. Like you lose your oxygen very quickly, and then you start losing your health very quickly. And it's such a stressful moment when that happens because it's so realistic. Like you would expect this to be exactly how a shark would feel if that was the case for them.
Yeah, it's like, oh no, Sharky. Come on, Sharky. You know, you're actually quite nervous about the whole thing.
Yeah, very much so.
I honestly don't know if there's much else to say.
Really
We've got to put this on there.
Something that we wanted to bring up because it's just one of those quirky little games that just came out of nowhere this year. It's not, of course, going to win like any Game of the Year awards, but it's just one of those games that like you would have in your library, especially if you had like a group of friends just sitting around goofing off. If you can get a group of friends at this point in time. And
yeah, if you could get people to come over.
Yeah. There used to be a time we could do that. We just all put our phones in front of the television now.
I remember days when I wasn't working 12 days a week. You heard me.
Like everything, we remember those days. Pepper's Farm remembers those days too. So.
Yep. Yeah, like apparently I was looking at the development. They apparently played Jaws Unleashed, which is a 2006 game, so PS2 era.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then they also checked out games like Deus Ex,
Dishonored,
Breath of the Wild. So, like that does explain where they got like almost all their inspiration.
Yeah,
from.
like especially when it comes to like the RPG mechanics, the idea of collectibles, and of course just like the shark mechanics. Like that definitely makes a lot of sense.
And I love the other lines here. Like combat system was inspired by Punch-Out.
Yeah.
And the game is skirting the line between plausible and ridiculous.
Yes.
Which is about right.
That is very much true.
No, so it's a fun little game. I forget what it's retailing for right now.
It's probably got to be no more than like 40. It might not even be that much.
It's not full price, and it shouldn't be.
No, not at all.
But it's big enough and expansive enough that you can 100%. Like it's not, I think it's more than 20.
Oh man, it's really cheap right now. I'm looking at Walmart. It's showing 25.
Oh, okay, that's not bad at all.
GameStop's showing 38, of course.
Yeah.
No, that's not bad.
Well, why would you go to GameStop?
I know, like really. No, that's not bad at all. That's very reasonable.
Yeah. So yeah, no, check it out if you're just looking for some silly shark fun.
Yeah, definitely.
And of course, it's on digital, so digital is always good.
Yeah, if you don't want to play it on PS4 or Xbox One, you always have PC. Always have our Steam.
Absolutely.
Oh, and Epic Games too. So they didn't monopolize this one.
Yeah. So actually, we usually do TV shows second, so maybe we should do Stargirl next.
Okay, that sounds good.
For some reason, my brain wanted to go to Jaws second. I'm like, no, let's talk about Stargirl.
No. I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking, of course, you're going to bring up Jaws next. Like that would like the natural flow. But no, I'm perfectly fine with Stargirl being next.
Yeah. So Stargirl, for those who aren't familiar, is a DC Comics character. Mm-hmm. She was introduced, I want to say, 2000.
Yeah, no, it was early 2000s. It might be right on 2000.
Yeah, it was one of the early characters Jeff Johns worked on, because because she was first 1999.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because that makes sense, because Jeff Johns was, I believe, in his teens in the early 90s, and that's when, it's hilarious, because the writer Jeff Johns, for all of his, and, I'm not going to get into much to his writing style and things, but I always thought it was funny, because if you go back to the early 90s and you read, like, letters to the editor and stuff in the back of comics, you see letters from Jeff Johns.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, he was always going to work with him. But it's relevant to bring him up because specifically Courtney Whitmore, the character of Stargirl, was created inspired after Jeff Johns' sister, Courtney, who died in 1996 during a famous plane explosion, I believe.
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, TWA Flight 800.
Yeah, there you go. Yep,
which
that's right.
I don't believe TWA works anymore. It exists anymore.
No, not at all, no.
That's probably one of the reasons why. Not to get into conjecture. But, anyway. So, yeah, the basic idea of Stargirl is... It's actually really interesting because Stargirl goes all the way back to the original... both the original Star-Spangled Kid and the original Starman.
Yes.
And so Stargirl kind of became an amalgamation of the two for the modern day. So she's very much an interesting legacy character because the idea of the legacy character with Starman has kind of come and gone, but like it was in the mid-90s when, what's his name, James Robinson did the Jack Knight series of Starman comics.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Which is, for better or worse, one of the more definitive works, and I think most of the better. It's more just some of his other works since Starman have not been great.
No, not at all. No.
That's where I'm coming from.
That,
I'm not going to deny Starman's good.
Yeah, that was like the final high point to me.
I don't know about the final, but definitely his height.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's done some decent stuff since, but it's, I think it's one of those. It's like Frank Miller to a degree. Not as bad as Frank Miller.
Oh,
but
man.
Because Frank Miller's like, oh yeah, he's riding high on the great stuff he did years ago.
Yeah.
Of course, Frank Miller's now like the angry uncle.
He really is. He's really transformed into that now.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how Jeff Johns goes because he's had some controversial moves.
He's had some moments too.
For those that don't know, Jeff Johns is the one who brought back Hal Jordan, which I wasn't opposed to, and also brought back Barry Allen, which I kind of didn't like.
Yeah.
And he's one of the head dudes at DC right now, so he's getting a lot of flack for any controversy that pops up, for seemingly turning a blind eye, etc. So there's a lot you could say about him, but I think we've covered all the relevant stuff we need to say about him.
Yeah.
Anyway, going back to Stargirl. Yeah, so the idea is, in this case, Stargirl, Courtney Whitmore, is discovering her legacy as a possible, if nothing else, an inheritor of the will, as you were.
Yes. Yeah.
Specifically in this case, in the form of the Cosmic Staff, a mysterious, seemingly magical artifact created by Ted Knight, the original Starman, and was once wielded by, presumably her father, although it seems not to be, the original Star-Spangled Kid, Sylvester Pemberton.
Yes.
Who is actually played by Joel McHale. Which was an interesting surprise, because I didn't know he was doing that before I started watching the show.
Same here. I had no idea.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the sort of launching port for the series is that Stripesy, or Stripes, Pat Dugan, played by Luke Wilson,
Yes.
Starman's sidekick, slash Star Spangled Kid's sidekick, is driving to a battle, an infamous battle in which the Justice Society of America, including Starman and several others, are all slaughtered by the Injustice Society.
And they do such a wonderful depiction of it in the show. Like, I was impressed. I was saying to myself, you have gotten a budget this time.
Oh yeah, well that's the thing, because while it's airing on CW, it's also airing on DC Universe.
Yeah.
So much like Doom Patrol, they have a budget, which is one of the things, by the way, that worries me, because Season 2 is going to be on CW only.
Oh, really?
Which worries me they're going to cut the budget.
Oh,
yeah.
Now I am worried.
Yeah, like I'm worried they're going to have to censor it a bit more, too.
Yeah,
There were
yeah.
some graphic moments.
Oh,
like, that makes me worried.
That definitely gets me. And it's coming off as a good first season now. Oh, man, I'm actually, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
no,
not
like...
good news at all.
So just to get a bit more into the premise before we talk about the season, so as a result, the JSA is dead.
Yes.
Like, and Pat's the only survivor, so he goes on the run, ends up marrying a woman some years later after his own wife is, I think she's dead, yeah?
Yeah, she dies, yeah. It's no conspiracy theory that we know of.
Yeah. So what are kind of the interesting things about the series, which they do okay. They do it better than some other stuff that I didn't like in the show, but there's some stuff I also love, so don't worry. But yeah, like, is the fact that Courtney is bonding with her stepfather.
Yeah, this is a blended family.
Interesting combination.
And also we have not only Courtney and, of course, her stepfather, there's also Mike, who is his son. So you have a stepbrother in the mix, and of course we had this kind of like weird triangle with this parental figure and his two kids. And shockingly, it's not the full-blood son that gets really attention, of course, because of what happens with Courtney.
Yeah, no, the series is just entirely about, well, not entirely, a good chunk of it is about the growing relationship between a stepdaughter and a stepfather during very unusual circumstances.
Right. And the interesting aspect of it is the fact that there's also Mike, who is Pat's actual son, his full-blooded son, and now he's witnessing the fact that his stepsister is really kind of like getting all the affection and the attention, not knowing exactly why. It seems like to him that, you know, he's trying to build a relationship with a new member of his family, but in reality, they have this grandiose secret that they can't tell anyone.
Yeah. It figures.
That's how it always works.
Yep. And, like, I love just how it develops, because it's like, first of all, Courtney's finds the cosmic staff and ends up bonding with her, and she's like, all right, I get to be a superhero. And it's like, well, that's a terrible idea. And then sure enough, soon Pat reveals he's been developing his own, how tall is that thing? 15 feet?
Yep.
He's got his own 15-foot tall mecha made of car parts. Stripe. It's an acronym or something. I don't remember. I think they actually lampshaded it as being a stupid acronym.
Yeah. No, I don't think they ever fully explained what it was. It was just like, I wanted to be called Stripe.
Yeah, well, because it's supposed to be like, it's one of those ones where they fully admit the forced acronym, which is always great because there's some pretty bad ones out there. If you ever want to see a series that really forces its acronyms, check out Gundam Seed.
Oh yeah.
Woof. Anyway, yeah, so the idea is they're living in the town of Blue Valley, which is very much a town that seems stuck in its past, small town America. Like, it's hilarious because it's the modern day, but at many points it feels like it's, oh yeah, we're in the 1970s.
Yeah, it really does. It really does.
Which I think is the point, because one of the things that seems to tie, because Blue Valley is essentially being controlled by the Injustice Society. Like, that's kind of the big hook there. And they're using that as a launching point for their plan for, what was it, New America?
Yes.
Yeah, I can't remember, because they run it through a non-profit organization called the American Dream.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and it turns out as a result, the Injustice Society all live in Blue Valley, pretty much all in prominent roles.
Yeah. Everybody has a very significant moment where you see them outside of, well, in terms of the villains, outside in their own natural habitat, their real world jobs and everything else. And you see, like, they actually have a lot of pull in the town, and people just really accept it. It's not necessarily that they don't know why. It's just like they are good at what they do, and including one of my favorites. Oh my goodness, what a great villain, and good old Sportsmaster.
Oh my god, all the villains are great. Like, the only one that kind of sucked was Wizard, just because we didn't get to see enough of him.
But I mean, they definitely did a great service of how to make sure he doesn't come back.
Yeah. But, like, yeah, because, like, Icicle is the main villain of the season.
Yes. Ruthless. So ruthless.
If there's only one thing I kind of hate is, like, how he falls in love with one character, and I'm just like, I don't fully buy that.
No, that was very true. That's very true, because the way they present him at the beginning, it just feels like that was unnecessary.
Well, yeah, like, it reminds me a lot of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, where Blofeld makes the moves on Tracy in that movie, which seems completely unnecessary and kind of out of character for Blofeld.
Yeah.
Like, in the same way, it kind of feels unnecessary in this. Like, it feels like they were almost going for the original Batman movie in that respect.
Right.
And it just didn't work quite as well for Icicle.
No,
like,
I did not want that.
No, but he's still a pretty solid villain. And they did a good job of making a guy with ice powers seem, pretty dangerous.
Right, no, and not only did he seem very dangerous, like, they emphasized the fact, like, this was, even though we have a brain-powered, mental-powered super villain on this thing, we definitely see that Icicle is not only powerful in the sense of his powers themselves, but also the fact that he is incredibly manipulative. He's incredibly smart. They just did a great job of presenting him as a masterful villain, outside of that one thing that they did when it came to a romantic interest.
Yeah, and likewise, Brainwave is very well done.
Yes.
Like, in particular, I love his Brainwave, besides, of course, being a neurosurgeon, because of course he is.
Yeah.
On the list of obvious secret, like Icicle at least it's like, oh, he's the leader, so he's the head of the American Dream.
Right,
like,
and this is what his power happens to be.
Yeah, he's not an ice cream man or something ridiculous like that. In this case, yeah, Brainwave is a neurosurgeon. That feels a bit more on the nose.
Yeah.
And then some of the other ones are pretty great too, pretty on the nose too, because it's like, like Wizard, isn't he like a city councilman? He wasn't the mayor.
Yes.
Yeah, like he was just a, and then what's his nuts? Trying to think of. Oh yeah, like I guess we could probably talk about. Yeah, we talked about Sportsmaster briefly.
Right.
Yeah. So Sportsmaster's a thing.
And I think maybe were you thinking about Dragon King?
Yeah, I was trying to think about Dragon. I was trying to remember what the heck the name of the person with the violin is. Because she's the principal.
Right. Crap.
Because she's related to the Fiddler, I believe.
Right. No. Anaya.
Yeah. Because she doesn't actually have a supervillain name. Because she is the actual Fiddler. Her husband's dead. She's taken over, but she doesn't get the Fiddler name.
Right. That's what made it so difficult for me to remember, because she actually has a normal name throughout the entire series.
She's just normal. Yeah, it's not like because we also get Gambler in there.
I was about to say, like, Gambler.
Yeah, Gambler's the CFO, of course he is. And Sportsmaster's a gym, the head of a gym.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Tigress, who's married to Sportsmaster, is the gym teacher.
Yeah, I love the fact that Sportsmaster interacts with Pat so much throughout the show when just in normal scenarios and normal surroundings.
Yeah, he clearly has no idea. He's just kind of an intense fitness dork. or as Anaya keeps referring to them, the gym rats.
Yeah.
And they're not wrong, because they are amazingly sociopathic.
Yes, very much so.
But I do love, because they're like, those really intense parents of their kid, and they kind of had a point. They just take it way the fuck too far. Because, like, because their daughter is Artemis, who anyone who watched Young Justice is probably like, oh, really, that Artemis? Yes. Yeah, she does show up in the show briefly. She doesn't really do much yet, but...
they definitely laid the foundation.
Yeah. And like they kind of lampshade how dumb sexism can be because in her first appearance she's like clearly a star football player, and then one guy just casually bullies her for no good reason.
Right.
Absolutely none. So she appropriately decks him, and then the coach is like, you're suspended.
Yeah.
Like, really? Could have been dumber, but you know, that's the thing. Like. That actually kind of leads me into one of the things I didn't like about the series. I don't think shows don't understand high school.
No, not at all. No.
Like, this is a problem in fiction in general where I always feel like they don't know how to do subtle years of abuse. Because, like, off the top of my head, I always thought about the Wolfenstein recent games where, like, we saw BJ's childhood with his abusive father. But we always only saw, like, the intense parts where, like, his father clearly snapped.
Right.
And it's like, that's not a good framing for what years of abuse looks like. That's just someone at their worst.
That is hilarious that you even bring that up, because I actually started thinking about Wolfenstein during watching this show. Like, some of the characters, the similarities are ridiculous. And it is absurd how far they go to try to emphasize, like, oh, this is abuse, without, understanding that it doesn't have to be as blunt as this all the time.
No, like, this is the thing that frustrates me about TV shows in particular when they do this. Because, like, they try to do, like, high school bullying, they try to do, like, abuse, but it's always intense. They never show the more subtle stuff. Yeah,
and I mean, to a certain extent, like, they tried to start, and then it went kind of like overboard with like, Yolanda's character.
Yeah.
Like they had the premise, and then it was like, no, this is not good enough. We have to go even further.
Yeah, because, like, it's a good example of a betrayal of trust, and, like, I love how that, like, the two main characters involved in that, Yolanda and, what's his nuts, Henry Jr. there.
Yeah.
Like, Henry Jr., by the way, easily one of the best developed characters in the show.
Yeah. Oh, I'm really looking forward to seeing how far they go with him.
Yeah. Because that was really interesting stuff. But, this is funny, because, like, he starts out as a meathead. And he is. But later, like, oh, he's not just a meathead. And I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
I would have hated 12 episodes of him being a meathead.
Just being that guy the whole time.
Yeah, and, like, all the characters, for the most part, with a few exceptions, like, I went back and forth on Cindy Berman, because she's insufferable for the first few episodes. Being, the head cheerleader, popular girl, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Well, she's always trying to make everyone recognize that she's as good as she thinks she is. And she's always trying to prove herself.
And she's very sociopathic, but the problem is, like, there's no subtlety to it. It's always just like, oh, within an episode, she's revealed her true colors.
Right, like, and I will slit your throat if I had the opportunity to do so, which is very ironic considering what happens during the show.
I know. Yeah, and so, like, her development later on, though, is pretty solid. Especially when you find out who her dad is.
Yeah.
and the scenes with her and her dad later on are great.
Yes. Oh, yes.
But the last thing we should probably touch on, because we're probably starting to run a little long on this, is the whole, like, because the whole thing is, Courtney and Pat find out the ISA, the Injustice Society, are roaming around the city there. So Courtney gets the idea to start recruiting people to be new members of the Justice Society.
Yes, the JSA.
So we get a few recruits pretty early on, because we talked about her briefly, Yolanda.
Yes.
Who was a, oh man, jeez, the way they depicted her parents was pretty bad.
Oh, very much so.
Like, it's 100% her parents are terrible. Yeah. They're not even going to remotely... Like,
there's no redeeming qualities here.
No, there's really not, because it's really awkward, because it's like, oh, they're Catholic, and so it's like, you're dead to us. I'm like, oh, that's awkward. Yeah, because it's like, she becomes the new Wildcat.
Yeah.
Because it's basically because Courtney's like, wait, boxing. Here, try this on.
Yeah, I was about to say, you know how to use your hands very well. Here we go. I know exactly who you should be.
Yeah, that was essentially what it was. And it was kind of the same thing with with Beth Chapel. I mean,
Yes.
it wasn't quite the same, but it was in the same neighborhood where she just kind of didn't she just sort of try on Dr. Midnight's goggles?
She was like they looked at it and was like, "How about you try this?" And it was like, "Okay, this fits. We're gonna go with it." It was no real rhyme or reason, no connection to the history. It was like, okay, we just need to fill a slot right now. You fit.
And of course, it falls into the classic. Okay, the characters aren't being terribly subtle, so of course someone's going to notice, and thankfully they have someone notice. But it's okay because they joined the Justice Society. It's not like three random guys who are like, "Are they talking about being superheroes?" Whatever. Let's get back to being generic 1960s bullies.
Right.
If it was 1980s, they'd be smoking.
Oh yeah. and don't forget, they would be beating each other with skateboards.
Yep. And then of course we do get the. I can't remember if they ever justified this coincidence because one of the other characters ends up being Rick Tyler.
Yes.
The son of Rex Tyler, the original Hour Man.
Mm-hmm.
Did they ever justify why he was there?
No.
Yeah, I was going to say
that's
that's
one of those like convenient plot moments. That was it.
Yeah, because some of the other convenient plot moments they explained. In particular, with a certain character, which I actually won't spoil because I love his reveal in the show. But when he shows up, and then later on, how they use his reveal to advance the plot.
Mm-hmm. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That character, as brief as they were featured, ultimately was great.
Right.
And I think that about covers the ISA because like the JSA, the new JSA, I should say. Yeah. You know, you need to keep it balanced because there's one character we don't want to spoil, and he kind of joins them, but it's a whole thing. Man, I remember in the second last episode where they revealed the villain's plot, and like, oh, so the character you just spent all this time introducing is now useless?
Yeah.
Thankfully, next episode they've resolved that, but I was kind of annoyed at that. Like, I love the other twist they do with that at the second last episode. Speaking of which, the villain's main plot is pretty great. I don't want to spoil it, although you can probably guess what it is. Based on what happens, like...
Yeah, based on what we've been saying, you should be able to figure it out, but even then, I still just want you to enjoy it yourself.
Yeah, because you can probably figure it out by episode 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And they don't fully reveal it until episode 10?
Yeah, it was like 10.
Yeah, but I always appreciate a show where they're like, okay, this is where we're going with this, and then people go, oh yeah, no, okay.
Hey, and I'm fine with it being obvious as long as you do it right. And that's perfectly fine. That's exactly what they did here.
Did you hear the story that just came out? I think F4W dropped it, where back when the main event happened between Andre and Hogan, news magazines actually leaked that Hogan was going to lose.
Wow.
And do you know how many people watched that show? 33 million.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, maybe sometimes having people know things isn't the worst thing.
Right.
Because I just keep thinking about all the recent modern stuff where like they're trying to hide obvious twists, like, oh no, Benedict Cumberbatch is not playing Khan.
Right.
I'm like, really? And then of course later on it got even dumber with Spectre. Oh no, Christoph Waltz is playing Blofeld. Just to bring it back to my James Bond tangent. Like there was especially no reason not to tell them that he was playing Blofeld. The whole twist there was one of the many reasons I don't like Spectre the movie that much.
It was ridiculous.
Anyway, yeah. So we haven't talked about Dragon King. Dragon King's great.
Oh, absolutely phenomenal character.
Yeah. And I do love that they keep his original backstory.
Oh yeah, that was the thing that I was really happy about. Like they really presented as when you first see him, it was like, okay, this is kind of goofy looking and it doesn't make much sense. And then like, no, they stick to it, and I am so appreciative that they actually stick to to the story of the character. Like it worked so well. Yeah.
Especially, so for those that don't know, Dragon King is a World War II war criminal.
Yes.
So he's a freaky, damn Imperial Japanese war criminal scientist man, and they were disenfranchised after World War II. Mm-hmm. That was very much a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like for those that don't know, one of the things that happened is the scientist class after World War II fell from grace, which is one of the many things that led to a weird destabilization in Japan that eventually led to the rise of Omsho no Hikyo. Like the same thing happened in Russia when they went from Soviet Union to the the modern day Russia.
Right, exactly. Yep.
It's amazing what happens when a country suddenly gets destabilized in a class of people, especially those with intelligence and nothing
high
to lose.
Intellect are shoved to the back.
What's the line? There's nothing quite like a nuclear scientist with nothing to lose. You know, like, the more I read about history, the more like, you know what, having mad nuclear scientists makes a lot of sense.
How dare you be smart and...
Yeah. Sorry?
No, go ahead.
Today, so, like, overall, I was going to say Stargirl, pretty good show.
Yeah.
Like I said, I have some problems with just... Honestly, most of these are criticisms of the medium in general. I'm so tired of this type of thing in general, so... Not subverting expectations at this point is a little disappointed to me.
Right.
But in general, they do a really good job with the characters. They do a pretty good job setting up the kind of absurd premise that they have. Because it is kind of an absurd premise.
Oh, yeah, just the introduction of Stargirl in general is absurd. But...
Yeah, like, it's... You know, they kind of... Like, you can clearly tell they were kind of inspired to do... How should I describe... It's very almost sort of, let's go with E.T.-esque, like 80s Spielberg-esque.
Mm-hmm.
And they absolutely capture that very well.
Yeah, it definitely has that energy to it.
Yeah, and like, well, isn't even the voice of Chuck, Dr. Midnight's AI, isn't that the guy who played Elliot in... Is
it?
I'm pretty sure it was.
Wow.
I swear that's who that was. But, yeah, no, in general, I'd say it's definitely worth a watch.
No, I was pleasantly surprised by it. It was just one of those things that, of course, you know, it dropped in the middle of summer, and, you know, it doesn't have really any connection to what we've seen with the Arrowverse. So I didn't really have too many high expectations for it. And in the end, I walked away very satisfied, and I'm looking forward to season 2, even with some of the decisions that have been announced.
They better still be filming in Atlanta.
I swear.
Because if they do what Supergirl did and they just moved to Vancouver, like, it wasn't that, like, the setting change was the issue. It was just all of a sudden, like, it's like, oh, there's suddenly, like, no desert nearby.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of desert in the Vancouver area, for those that don't know. It's mostly mountain. Or farmland. So it's like, oh, you know, it's much like when they filmed Smallville. It's like, look at those great mountains of Kansas. Hang on. You know what I mean?
Oh, man,
yeah, no, Stargirl is definitely worth a watch. So, speaking of Spielberg, which there's our connection back to the last thing we're going to talk about.
Bringing it all back around.
Yeah, Jaws. Okay, so the reason I wanted to talk about it wasn't just because we were talking about Maneater, but I finally went back to a movie theater for the first time in months.
Yeah.
I think the first time since I went to see Sonic.
Wow.
I think that was the last movie I saw in theaters before the pandemic hit. So, yeah, I went by like a week or two ago, whenever we decided to do this episode. And, yeah, because they were doing $5 movies. They're probably honestly cheaper in the U.S. right now.
Yeah, oh yeah, they're actually promising like 1930s, 1920 prices right now at certain places.
So that's less than $1.
Yeah.
Like, they're probably losing money.
Oh, you know it. You know it. I'm assuming they're trying to make up for it in snacks.
Oh, 100%, because the snack prices did not drop. Did not drop at all.
No, because you know, like, they know, hey, we're coming back for the first time. Everybody's going to buy as many snacks as they want to buy.
No, we're not. Those are overpriced. Oh, yeah, let me get a soda and a hot dog. I go to freaking Costco, get it for $1.50. How much is it here? Oh, $10? Oh, but you get cheese sauce. Ooh. Ugh. Ridiculous. Anyway. So, yeah, I went to go back to the theaters for the first time, and we saw Jaws. The classic Spielberg, you know, the one that made Spielberg the guy he is. Because he did some other stuff, I think, before then, mostly.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
Yeah, but, yeah, and it's interesting, because, like, Jaws was a novel.
That was the thing that was surprising to me, like, growing up as a kid and watching it. I just never thought of it being a novel.
No.
And then when I got older, I was like, what? Jaws is actually a novel?
Yeah. It's like finding out Jackass was based on a novel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, how?
Oh, man, that was a great one. Oh, man.
I thought you'd like that one. I can't take credit for that one. That goes to Bill Bailey.
Oh, yeah.
That is a great joke. Anyway, yeah. So the movie was, like I said, it basically launched Steven Spielberg's career, led to a very infamous. I don't know if you've ever seen it. There's famous behind-the-scenes footage where Spielberg's talking about waiting for the Oscar nominations, and then he's outraged that he didn't get nominated for Best Director.
No, I haven't seen that. Oh.
It's honestly kind of cringy. It's like, oh man, I guess we didn't need to wait for the vlog age for people to become pretentious pricks on camera and then act like whiny little poops when they don't get what they want.
Oh man, I gotta look that up today.
I know, I can't remember. He's like, oh, I didn't get it. They gave it to Fellini instead. It's like, dear God. Like, so I do kind of appreciate that he didn't get nominated for that, because I can't imagine the Spielberg we would have gotten instead.
Oh my goodness, we would have been Michael Bay.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Still would have had a spotlight fetish, though.
That's true. That is very true.
Speaking of which, so, like, I gotta talk about this. So, actually, no, we should probably talk about the plot real quick, just in case someone hasn't seen Jaws.
Yeah, if you've never seen this movie, which, it was really, for our generation, it was an institution, because at one point it just became one of those movies that came on all the time on Saturday or Friday nights.
Yeah.
So, like, I probably have seen the movie at least about 20 times.
I've actually probably only seen it 6 or 7 times.
Yeah, no, it was just one of those movies that kept coming on, and being a kid, of course you're just going to sit there and watch it, because what else are you going to do besides play with toys? Like, you're just going to watch Jaws and play with toys.
100%. Like, I got cursed. Most of the time when I turned on the TV, I got the later ones.
Oh, man.
Like, I've seen bits of Jaws the Revenge probably 3 or 4 times, and I refuse to watch the whole thing, because what I remember is not good. And I'm like, none of the sequels are any good.
No, they're not.
What, you don't want to see Dennis Quaid defend SeaWorld?
No, I do not. Oh, my goodness. I'll never forget watching Jaws, just getting it. I rented Jaws Revenge. Of course, I got to ask my parents to see it because it's a sequel. It's got to be great. Oh,
nope.
Man.
Yeah, but anyway, so the premise is that Amity Island, fictional town is that Connecticut, or is that, which state is that in?
I thought it was, crap.
Is it Maine?
I thought, yeah, I think it is Maine. I knew it was on the northeast, but I can't remember for sure if it was Maine.
Yeah, it's northeast of New York, which is the whole thing. Because you get, like, New Yorkers and whatever, especially for tourists and whatnot. And, speaking of the guy who lives in a tourist town, I know exactly how they feel.
Yeah.
Especially now. Where it's like, oh, the tourists are coming for the suburb because they can't leave the country, so they're all coming here. And I'm like, oh, man. Sure enough, we got COVID spikes.
Of course.
I can't eat at my favorite restaurants right now because they keep having to temporarily shut down due to COVID outbreaks.
Wow.
And guess what? It's always out-of-towners that freaking do it.
Of course.
Yeah, because they want to go eat at the places by the water. The problem is summer,
everyone stay in the vicinity. Do not be, traveling across state lines or country lines. Just stay home. Stay in your area. Don't go to places that you're not supposed to be going and infecting other people. But
yeah,
selfishness.
So like, this movie ended up being very timely to watch.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Especially because, like, so the whole thing is, one night, a teenage girl gets horribly mauled by a shark.
Yes.
Killed. But, like, the whole thing is her body's mangled beyond belief. And the medical examiner's like, I think it was a shark attack. So they get the chief of police, Martin Brody, played by the great, I believe he's deceased now, Roy Schreider.
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he died over 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know it was that long ago. I knew he had died, but I couldn't remember for how long.
I didn't realize it was only in 2008. I thought it was more recent.
Yes, same here. I didn't know it was that long ago.
Man, we are turning into old men.
I know. All of our heroes are dying and we can't remember.
Yeah. That's a shame, too, because this movie actually stars one of my favorite actors from the James Bond franchise. Just bring it back. And he's been dead for a very long time.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Robert Shaw.
Yeah.
From Russia with Love, arguably Connery's best film. He's in here as a character we'll talk about shortly. But yeah, the whole idea is Martin Brody, Roy Schreider, he's the chief of police. He's like, oh, okay, this is a shark attack. I better treat it as such. And then the mayor's like, now, gentlemen, please. You have to understand, we're just a poor oceanside town.
This is the only thing that's going to bring it in the capital to our town.
Yeah. I know that voice is not accurate since it's a northeast town, but it's very much so.
No, he's a southern mayor if there ever was one.
Oh, yeah. And, like, the thing is, I'm being a little harsh on him, because it's like, he's clearly, you know, being a bit ignorant, but he just doesn't feel the burden of proof is strong enough to risk the
and that was the thing, like, I understood his reasoning, because he actually is factual that we do not have shark attacks. This was something that was so out of the ordinary. But it was no attempt by him to say, you know what, maybe there is a possibility. Maybe we need to watch the waters for a few days just to see. No, we will not shut down our beaches. And as you said, that is very timely for what's going on right now.
Oh, 100%. And like I said, it's like I'm more sympathetic to the mayor on this one than I am for the people in the damn pandemic, since, you know, we've got all this other stuff going on.
Yeah, and there's a lot more scientific evidence.
Yeah, in this case, it's like all they have is a person who was horribly mauled,
right?
And then later on, and then they're like, it looks like it could have been a propeller,
right?
And you know, we get the impression that the guy was pressured into changing his report, but maybe his own self-doubt over. He's like, oh, please tell me it's not a shark. Please tell me it's not a shark.
Yeah, it's just like,
I don't.
And once again, you know, he's not necessarily experienced with it. He just believes that it's a shark attack. But now you're hearing, you know, different types of potential injuries and what could have caused this. And now, like you said, he could be second-guessing himself.
Yeah. And then, of course, it quickly turns out to be not the case.
Nope.
Especially with that great scene where we see it from Brody's perspective as the poor kid just gets chomped.
Oh, man, that was rough.
Yeah.
I remember watching that for the first time. That was rough.
Yeah, that is just a very unfortunate scene. And then, like, we soon get introduced to Matt Hooper, played by the great Richard Dreyfuss, who's still alive.
Yes.
And he examines, he's like, no, this was a damn shark attack.
Yeah.
Like, he's this great level of smarmy intellectual who's more down-to-earth than he seems, but he just cannot tolerate BS, and he just gets so hilariously infantile.
Yes.
When he's tired of people's BS.
Yeah, once like going back to what we were saying with Stargirl in the high school, like it doesn't have to be that blunt. I love the fact his character's always very blunt.
Oh no, yeah. Like he's a blunt character.
Yes.
The other characters are a bit more, you know, around the weeds. Like especially Brody. Like the only thing he's very blunt about is his guilt, which honestly is something he has to live with. Like there's no denying. He wanted to close the beach. He was convinced not to, and because of that, a child died.
Yes.
Now, he does not necessarily fully share the blame with it, but he was the one who ultimately had the authority
to say,
to stand up to it.
To shut down.
So, yeah, absolutely. And, of course, we get that around the same time as they're debating what to do about the shark after the death. We get the introduction of Quint. The amazing introduction of Quint.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
Played by the great Robert Shaw.
Yes.
Dead for a long time. Oh, man, I just love that introduction. He's like, you'll never kill the shark. You need me. I'll do it, but I'm not doing it for any less than this.
Yeah! That's the best part.
Like, that's essentially how he talks.
I love the part. That was the thing that always gave me a pop, was the fact that he was like... at first it sounds like he wants to do it for notoriety's sake. And then it goes like, no, you gotta pay me. Like, I'm not doing this for cheap.
Yeah. Like, I'm the one you need, but you'll have to pay me the right amount.
It goes from, like, I want to be Ahab to, no, man, you better pay Ahab. I love it.
Yeah. Oh, that's the thing. He definitely goes Ahab at some point.
Oh, yeah. Later in the movie, he definitely goes Ahab. He goes full-blown Ahab.
Yeah, but, like, he's not... You know, he's a professional. He's like, a good professional never does it for free.
Oh,
that's essentially what his character starts as, and later on he's like, all right, now it's a matter of fact. I'll never let a shake beat me.
Yeah, no, it's gotten personal now.
Yeah.
And he does some wacky stuff by the end to make sure that you understood that he has lost all sense of reason.
Just thinking about the captain now from Day of the Dead and his famous chokada moment.
Yeah.
I feel like he thinks he's Quint.
Yes, really.
But he's really not.
He thinks he's a poor man's Quinn. He doesn't think he's just Quinn. He's a poor man's Quinn.
Yeah. Anyway, so like, that's essentially the premise of the movie. Is eventually they have to go and hunt the shark after they realize, okay, no, this is not going to stop. And by the way, for anyone who makes fun of the mayor, I just want to point out the great scene where he looks at Brody. He's like, my kids were on that beach.
Yeah.
Like he's clearly had a bit of a mental break, and he's just like, no, you do what you need to do.
Yeah.
Because he's going back, looking at all his past decisions and trying to rectify it with putting his family in danger. Because he is going through essentially what Brody went through, but even more intense.
Right,
because he
realized actually has a personal connection to it.
Yeah, like, and that kind of goes to show, right? It's like, oh, I don't care about this thing, and then all of a sudden it threatens your livelihood.
I was about to say, it doesn't affect you until it doesn't matter to you until it affects somebody that you know or it affects you personally. Like, that's a lot of times we see that, especially when it comes to people in power.
Mm-hmm. 100%. Like, this is the thing about this movie. Like, it is timely in that respect.
Yeah.
If there's a couple things that I don't like, it's the audio mixing has really started to show in its age where it's very hard to understand some people sometimes.
Yeah, it really does, yeah.
But the visuals, oh man.
No, they still look impressive. Like, the last half an hour are still some of the best filmmaking I've seen in my entire life.
Oh, and the scene where they go looking for the shark at night.
Oh, that's absolutely marvelous.
The spotlights.
Oh man.
Like, I go back and I watch that scene. I'm like, oh yeah, this is why Spielberg loves spotlights.
Yeah.
Because this is easily one of the coolest shots in his entire movie, and like the movie that made his career. I'm like, yeah, I'd keep going back to this.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, I understand. Like, if there's only one other thing I really criticize, it's John Williams kind of got away from himself in the scene where the body floats up in the boat.
Oh yeah.
Because that is one of the biggest jump scare moments of the whole thing, and it's entirely because of the soundtrack.
Yeah.
I'm like, you did a little too much.
Yeah, you went there that time. That was a little bit too much on you.
That's a little hackney there, Johnny Wee. Old Johnny Wee. 54-time Oscar nominee he is. And I call him Johnny Wee. Anyway. Yeah, so, I mean, as a result, the movie flows pretty well at 2 hours.
Yeah.
Like, there's maybe a couple of lulls here and there, but not too much.
No, not at all. No. I think, like, the biggest lulls are the parts where you really want... they want you to feel more of a personal connection to the characters, which I'm perfectly fine with. It's not like it goes too long.
Yeah. There's a couple scenes with, like, the family and stuff that feel a little hackney.
Yeah.
Or especially, like, the one point when they're running off the beaches and the people are screaming kind of pathetically.
Yeah, that was very Godzilla-esque when it comes to that. Like that's the ones where, like, okay, you see the Godzilla movie, oh, let's do that. And it comes across like that.
Yeah, because that's where you get into the really camp screaming that
yeah,
always
exactly.
looks ridiculous.
Pointing and looking instead of just getting off the beach.
Or getting out of the water, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's still not as egregious to me as something Spielberg would do later in his career.
Very true.
Lost World.
Yeah.
Screaming while driving backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember when Jurassic Park was actually scary?
Yeah.
Man. Anyway. So, no, in conclusion, Jaws is still a fantastic movie. We're at a point now where you might be looking for classics to watch. Jaws definitely holds up. And I think it's one that everyone can relate to as being one to watch. Like, it's not one of those art house pictures we might recommend. It's like, oh yeah, this is a good time to get... Because it is also a very good time to get into art house. Like, it's impressive how many people still haven't seen some of the classic, big films.
Yeah.
And this is one that holds up very well.
I mean, this is a 45-year-old movie.
Yep.
And you would not think it.
No. Like I said, it holds up very well.
No, you would not think it at all.
That about covers it.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to...
No. Like I said, if you haven't seen it, go see it. If you have seen it, or if you haven't seen it in a while like I have, rewatch it because it's awesome.
Yeah, 100%. All right, I think that'll wrap up for this episode. There's a hopefully undetected audio glitch at one point in the episode. Hopefully no one noticed.
No.
But yeah, that'll do it for episode 83, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks for episode 84. In the meantime, it's definitely not safe to go back in the water. Or to a crowded restaurant. You know, just be smart, people.